Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Not Post-Match Raw, because it's not allowed to be called that because that game was an abomination. But this is, I'm going to pre-season Raw. That's what we'll go with. Welcome to Post-Match Pre-Season Raw. I'm your host, Guy. I got asked to do this earlier in the day, so here I am. Liverpool lost 4-0 to Man United with 3 different teams playing. A very odd game, and I have 2 sad people to join me. Jay, how are you doing?
Laughable.
Yeah.
I rushed home from work for that shit. I wish I didn't. No, I wish I'd stayed in work and not even being paid for it. But you know, it was entertaining for all the wrong reasons. But there was a couple of bright sparks in there, so therefore we might have something to club together and put a podcast out there for the people to listen to.
Absolutely. Well, we're here for the content, people.
Hendrik was moaning there was no one else chipping in, so here we are.
Exactly. So here we are. We also have Karl with us. How are you doing, Karl?
Despite that, I'd say I'm still doing well. You know, it's I'm taking it that doesn't affect my midweek records for post-match podcasts. You know, friendlies don't count. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely doesn't count because it wasn't really a game. If you have 3 separate teams in a game of football, it's not even pre-season. It's pre-season. So yeah, it doesn't count. Absolutely doesn't count.
Does this mean you're not going through the lineups then, Guy?
I was
like Trev would.
Well, I was about to, and then you jumped in. Now I can't find the graphic.
That'll fill the half hour, won't it? If you just go through the lineups.
I can't find the graphic though. There it is. Right. So Jay, seeing as you're speaking, we'll go with the first one.
Okay.
Allison, Mabaya, Phillips, Gomez, Chambers, Henderson, Morton, Carvalho, Elliott, Diaz, Firmino. Right, we know most of them. Mabaya is a young right back who also plays in midfield by the sounds of it. Luke Chambers is a left back. I think he was with the England Euro under-19s. I think he was on their bench, so I think that's why he's there. And Kwanzaa's not, because I think Kwanzaa was a starter, if memory serves. We know Morton. But out of that team, Jay, is there anyone that you... Well, looking forward to playing out of that team, but also players who kind of need to have a good pre-season ahead of taking an opportunity type thing?
I think the obvious draws you to the front line. And, you know, every one of them, you whittle through them quite quickly. Obviously, Carvalho was first start. We were all excited to see him. There was a few touches which we can probably get into. Obviously, Elliott didn't really feature much after his injury last year, so it was nice to see him again. The couple of clips that, you know, the social media feeds being put out there has been whetting the appetite of those who really want to enjoy a nice little dink over, I think it was one of the Polish kids in goal. And he does actually look quite sharp, to be fair, in his footwork. Bobby, you know, it's always good to see Bobby because, you know, it is. And I think we are all anticipating a really good year from Luis Diaz, given, you know, the infamous Klopp pre-season, the time to work on tactical approaches, not just, you know, get out there and do step overs and skim people, because that's what he does. But yeah, you know, the others in the team, we sort of know what you're going to get, like the likes of Gomez, the likes of Henderson, but wouldn't say too many of the young lads put too much of a marker down, and maybe you could say the occasion was a bit too much for them, but there was a certain individual, which we'll probably get into, which didn't put a marker down for the right reasons.
Yeah. we'll maybe pick out a couple of players from the key incidences as we go. But Karl, I mean, same question for you. I mean, that first team that played, we went through them there. Most of them we know what they are, but for me, the two that probably draw the eye, who need to have it, not need to have, but have a good pre-season, probably Elliott, because second half of the season was a write-off due to the injury and obviously coming back from fitness, and Carvalho, because albeit it's coming from Fulham, it's not a random team, but I'm sure not many of us watch the Championship, so it'd be nice to see what type of player he is, and I think we kind of got a grasp of what type of player he is.
Yeah, I think certainly Carvalho is probably the standout on that first team sheet, when you were looking at it before the game, because of course, he's an exciting signing. He's such a hot prospect. And we're just, as you said, we wouldn't have gotten a chance to see much of him, kind of playing in the championship last year, for the most part. So, he was certainly one that caught the eye, and we were looking forward to seeing. I think otherwise I'd kind of agree with the points both yourself and Jay made. Of course, Harvey Elliott, his season was very much disrupted last year by a big injury, and he never quite got going again. So I think preseason is massive for him this year. I think in similar fashion, Bobby had a lot of little injuries last season. It was a very stop-start season for him. So again, it's important that he gets a good preseason into his legs, and hopefully can avoid a repeat of that this season. And again, in a similar vein, I think Joe Gomez, obviously last preseason, it wasn't a proper preseason for him, because it was more so, kind of, what would you call it? Physio almost,
Yeah.
recovering from his injury, getting time into his legs. Whereas this is a proper preseason, so that he can offer a lot more to us this season than maybe he was able to, at least for the first half of last season. So I think it's probably most important for those players. Another one that I was looking forward to seeing was Tyler Morton. I thought, he didn't look too out of place last season when he was called upon. And we've been reading in recent weeks, Klopp has been suggesting that he's now training as a number 8 rather than as the sitting midfielder, and I was intrigued to see how he'd get on. And once we get into the match, I'd say he certainly didn't disappoint.
Yeah, I'd be with you there. I mean, a quick asterisk before we get into the in-game stuff. I think United it's basically a week and a half or 2 weeks. I think they're ahead of us in pre-season. So, I should really get the Man United team ahead of me, which I will get when I ask you the next question. But I mean, Jay, we saw it the first half, especially the extra week or so in pre-season they've had, really gave them an advantage.
Yeah, and they rolled out. I think it was said in commentary. I was watching on LFC TV for what it's worth with Steve, whatever his name is, and Gary Gillespie. That's probably their first 11, minus maybe Harry Maguire and asterisk Cristiano Ronaldo, if he's still there. So what do you expect? Like if that's the best they're rolling out against, like our mismatch of kids and some experienced players who've come back from injuries, and we've probably got about 9 days worth of training in our legs to their 15 or 16. Good luck to them this season. They probably need it. They did some nice things, United, but the goals, we can dive into them. They were all our errors that led to their goals. It weren't anything spectacular that they'd done, but social media, it's not probably worth going on for the next few hours, because it'll be an absolute meltdown, because we lost a pre-season friendly in Thailand. But if that fills them with a false sense of security, and Eric Ten Hag's the second coming of Alex Ferguson, then crack on with it, lads, because you're going to need a lot more than that come August the 20 something. I think we play them 22nd, I think it is, off the top of my head, on Monday night. So
not Red Monday again. Well, it's going to be 0-0 again.
No, this one's at Old Trafford. I've been to that one. I've seen that one twice before on a Monday night. It doesn't work. But yeah, it is. It's just it's the proverbial, it's a game of fitness. It's just about getting minutes in legs, and I think the commentary team on LFC TV couldn't reiterate enough that one, the humidity and temperature they're playing out there in is pretty severe. Like, not compared to the poor old buggers that we've had to suffer in England the last 2 days, but they've also had double sessions to deal with, and lads are returning at different times. Like the international kids, lads, only come back. I think it was 2 or 3 days ago and joined up with them out there. So, it's to be expected. And yeah, as Karl was saying, and rightly so, like, it was good just to see Gomez actually again, like, re-continue with this probably is a proper pre-season for him now, where last season was probably just about getting his body out on the pitch and making sure it came back in one piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Karl, I'll go through their team with you specifically because I've done my job and loaded up the graphic. De Gea in goal, who was seemingly going to play 90 minutes for whatever reason before he got injured. Delort, Varane, Lindelof, Shaw, McTominay, Fred, Sancho, Fernandes, Rashford, Martial. As Jay said, Karl, that is basically their first 11. Maybe Maguire, but he's crap, and obviously Ronaldo. But minus 2 players, that is probably their first 11, which is a stark contrast to our team.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it's their likely first 11 as things stand. If Ronaldo moves on, that could change. But I mean, what I'd say is, in my opinion, it's probably their best 11 because, I'm not the biggest fan of Maguire. I don't think Lindelof's great either, but I'd give him an edge over Maguire. And then,
Yeah.
in terms of the front three, a lot of people were saying on Twitter during the match, what if United had gone with this front three last year and, kind of put some faith in Martial and given him some confidence, and the same for Rashford, rather than compromising to have Ronaldo in the team, could it have been a somewhat different season for United? And it's a fair point. So, I mean, I joked in the chat before the game that we're gonna get smashed once we saw the lineups, because we know how Klopp is never going to compromise on his preseason vision. He very much
Rightfully
sees
so
it
as
as
well.
a fitness building exercise, and he'll miss and match his teams. He'll make a lot of changes during the games, which is clearly a different approach to Ten Hag, who wanted to get out kind of his best team and give them 45 minutes in their legs, and each to their own. But we you can't gauge too much from the result based on those differing approaches, and of course the fact that United had I think it was about a week and a half ahead of us in terms of preparations. So, but I mean, nonetheless, credit to United. They can only do what they can do against the team put out against them, and I do think there is some positives for them to take. I do think their pressing, especially in that heat, was impressive.
Nah, it's still shit. Right, we'll get into the game. I will jump through some things and then we can rotate back. Probably jump up to the subs and then we'll jump back through the incidences. Incidents, I can't speak today. Harvey and Maguire combine on the right, forces De Gea to block across with his feet. My next note is fuck defending. I'm guessing that's for both teams. Diaz has a shot, another good save by De Gea. Sancho scores a poor clearance by Maguire, but Nat misses a header as well, which you'd probably expect him ahead, so it is one thing. The fuck we not score, I believe that's the one where we had literally about 4 shots in the space of 2 seconds and none of them close to goal. I think Diaz was the worst miss there. Phillips may be drunk. United had a chance. I think that's where he screwed up his clearance. 2-0 United. Everyone is drunk. Fred lobs Alisson. Then we get up to the sub. So, Jay, I mean, that first 30-minute period, it's a mad game. I mean, it's certainly back and forth. We should have scored definitely, but God, it feels weird over-analysing a pre-season game, but here we are. But yeah, we can clearly see our defence is rusty, and it's not our actual defence.
Yeah. Poor on that Phillips. If we were expecting to sell him for 10 to 12 million, I think we've just probably halved that. And I don't even think Bournemouth would take him at this point, given that performance. He was just all over the... He just, like, even the simple thing, like, maybe he's just trying to play the Liverpool way, and, like speech marks that don't put the ball into Rose's head, but sometimes even Virgil will put the ball in Rose's head because it's just the right thing to do. Like the first goal, the young kid, I can't remember whether it was a header or like an attempted clearance with his foot.
It was clearance with his foot.
He just got like no purchase on it, I think.
Yeah.
And then the second one, they were just seemed to like be playing a game of bowling pins. They were all falling over one of the Henderson, Phillips, Morton,
Gomez was the one with
Gomez. It was just like, and I don't even think Fred meant to chip him. I think he's just hitting it. Like that's not. He's Brazilian. He's Brazilian by birth. That's all.
Yeah, he's probably passing it to someone. To be fair, just accidentally did it.
Yeah, he's only Brazilian by birth passport. That's all. But yeah, and I think going forward for us, I think we hit the post twice, didn't we, in the first half? Yeah. Diaz and Carvalho. So there was a lot of promise in what was going forward. There was some nice interchange of play, and as you say, how we didn't score in that like pinball wizard of a play where I think Chambers had a couple of swipes. Diaz air kicked it, then eventually bent one in, and again, it's what you always say. Like it's pre-season. That's the time of the year where you get this rust off, and there was positive signs there to be had, and I think the anticipation before the game was all about what we'd see from Fabio Carvalho because we got a little whet the appetite with Harvey last year and Diaz, but it was kind of built up to be what is this kid, and it was certainly good enough for me. Like a few nice touches, and it's very cliche to say, but he does just have a lot of Coutinho about him. The way he moves, the way he carries himself, the way he shifts the ball. It's very Coutinho-esque of the early years. So if we get the player that we got out of Philip Coutinho for 3 or 4 years, then we're not going to do too badly out of this lad.
And then we can sell him to Barcelona for 200 million.
And a Spotify deal.
Yeah, absolutely. God. I mean, Karl, that first let's not bog down on the goals. I mean, the positives from there, I think Jay mentioned there with Carvalho. Elliott as well for me, and Diaz is obviously always exciting. But Carvalho, let's touch on him for a sec, because he seemed to be playing as a number 10 in possession, but when we lost the ball, he dropped into left centre mid, which we kind of seen last season. The right centre mid they were much more attacking than the other two midfielders. That's probably the most interesting thing from the starting 11, that it was him in midfield, in the central midfielder spot, rather than Elliott, who started on the right wing.
Yeah, that was surprising. I mean, when I first saw the lineup, I figured Elliott was going to be in midfield and Carvalho pushed up in attack, and perhaps Diaz out of position on the right. But surprisingly, then it was clarified that Carvalho would be playing in midfield. So that in itself was intriguing, and I think as yourself and Jay touched on, it was impressive from Carvalho. You can't judge someone too much on 30 minutes of a preseason game, but he didn't look out of place. I think I've heard the phrase before that class recognizes class, and we sometimes see that when we get a new player and they instantly seem to kind of click with our other quality players, and I think we saw that with Carvalho and Diaz. There was almost an instant understanding, and that's really promising for a potential kind of left side combination that we could see at times this season. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's as I said, it's a very small sample size, but it is nonetheless a positive sample size to take so far.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice to see him with a more established midfield. I think Henderson had an odd position because him and Morton kind of shared responsibility, but certainly much more of a defined two, and obviously he didn't really work. And we mentioned the defence there, but him with a Fabinho, Thiago, or something like that, you could see him have more freedom, and when he's actually fit, as we keep saying. But Karl, I'll stick with you. We'll move on to the second team, because we don't want this to be a stupidly long team. Pod, I should say. But we'll move on to the second team. On the 30th minute, we subbed on this lot. Adrian came on. Frondorf went to right back, who I believe is a number 10/winger, so he's out of position. And we basically played with no right back for that 30-minute period. Reece Williams, Joe Matip, Simicas, Basetic, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Leighton Clarkson, James Milner, Curtis Jones, Clark, what's his name? What's his second? Bobby, is it Bobby Clark? I think his first name is. And Oxlade-Chamberlain. My first note, Carl, is Bobby Clark was born in 2005. How old do you feel?
Very.
I was going into secondary school in 2005. I feel old as shit now, and I don't like it. It's not good. It's not good. But that team's probably possibly weaker than the first 30-minute team. And this seemed to be where we didn't concede as many goals, but the game seemed to be a bit more chaotic as well.
Yeah, I mean, what you could say about this team is it certainly had less balance than the first team. I mean, you said there that it seemed like Frauendorf was playing right back despite being a midfielder. But Bajcetic, which I believe he is has played games at fullback. It seemed that like one point he was at fullback and then another point Frauendorf was at fullback. So I'm not even sure people
Yeah,
knew
I have
where they
no
were
idea.
playing.
I have no
It
idea.
was really all over the shop. I mean, there was no real. I think Clarkson was the only real kind of. Or sorry, Clark rather was the only kind of recognized attacker. It was more
Yeah.
so a lot of midfielders playing all over the place. Like it was a very strange setup. So I mean, you have to take a positive that they didn't concede, especially against well, they did, sorry, right at the start, but that was right after they came on, obviously, and Reece gave the ball away. It's unfortunate, really, because United had their tails up. But I mean, once they settled in and kind of got into their stride, I mean, it was, as you said, a bit chaotic, but they didn't concede in that spell, so to speak, which is in itself, I suppose, commendable given the strong United side that they were up against. But I mean, it's I think it was a weird one for them as well because they ended the half, played 15 minutes against that first United 11, if you will, and then they played 15 minutes against more of a kind of reserve United 11, and I think they kind of bossed the game in that 15 minutes against a reserve United 11, but because of that lack of kind of defined roles and particularly the lack of attackers, there was just it was completely toothless. Like we just had nothing in the final third, and therefore there weren't really any chances. It was kind of just territorial advantage. It's difficult to really take many points about this second
No.
11, and I think that really stems down to just how kind of makeshift it was.
Yeah, other than the Reece Williams mistake, there's not really much to talk about, as you say. So, Jay, I'll move on to half time with you. I mean, Adrian comes on for Allison, which obviously planned. United swap teams. This isn't in position order, it's just how it's listed. Malacia comes on for Shaw, who looked like he may have picked up a slight injury, but obviously not if he didn't get subbed off before when he pointed it out. Alanga come on for Rashford, Tellers for Lindelof, Bailly for Varane, Wan-Bissaka for Delors, Van der Beek for Bruno Fernandes, Robbie Savage's kid for Fred, Zidane Iqbal, which is a class name, for Scott McTominay, Palestri on for Sancho, and Diallo on for Martial. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Shaw was just signalling to get his food on for half time. He wasn't signalling to come off. He just knew he was had the spring rolls ready for half time. Yeah, I think as Karl said there that it was more of akin to a reserve team or a B team or however you want to label it, but more probably akin to what we had out for that middle 30 of the game in terms of level of quality. I'd say and experience. I think the likes of Ox was in there and Jones, if you want to label him as an experienced member of the squad now because he's been around the first team for a couple of years. That's potentially what you can or couldn't do depending on your opinion of the lad. But yeah, I think you touch on the fact that it was all a bit of a mishmash of positions and lads playing out of position, lads being, youngsters that they are, being very keen to impress and often vacating the position, which often led to like huge gaps. And it was no surprise that it was a bit of a mess, and we got picked off and conceded a third while they were playing. But the first 15 minutes of the second half, it was a pretty even contest, I thought, in terms of what we had out there. There was nothing really to make a note of unless you've actually made any. I don't think there was.
No, it's literally, what have I got?
It was just like half time.
My only note
came on 60 minutes changes.
my only notice someone was born in 2005 and their goal. That's it.
Yeah, and you're being ageist now because you're making Lisa Marie feel old because her second child was born then. So yeah, I think we could probably just say it was nice for these lads to get a run out, and they might get the same again on Friday when we play Palace in Singapore. But
hopefully
we
the
can
younger
probably
lads
skip to the 60 minutes now.
Yeah, the only thing you'd say is if some of the younger lads hopefully play in a more set system or something like that, it's probably do them a bit of good. But we've still got to play people like Sepp and other youngsters as well to come in.
Yeah,
so
I also think that these lads, I think it was mentioned in commentary that once we've been to Singapore, we come home to Liverpool for a couple of days, and then we'll probably trim the squad, I imagine, to around about 27, 28.
Yeah,
to then take to the European.
Yeah.
So, for a couple of these kids, it'll be a case of, a really good experience, and then they'll probably continue to play domestic games. And, if anything, they can say they pulled a Liverpool shirt on and played against Manchester United in an international game. Like, you can never take that away from the lads.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we play the Red Bull teams, don't we? That I think that'll be where you see probably the locked in 23, 25 man squad, and then proper structured friendlies. But as you say, we'll move on to the 60th minute when we brought on the next team. Again, this is just a list, not in position order. Salah comes on for Jones, Fabinho for Clarkson, Van Dijk for Reece James, Kanate for Matip, Thiago for Milner, Naby for Basetic, Nunes for Clark, Trent for Fraudendorf, Robbo for Simicas, and Hill for Oxlade-Chamberlain. Karl, this is probably the most established looking team. It still lost 1-0, but this was probably the best the team looked in the 30 minutes because it's against their weaker team and it's our more established team.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue this is our strongest 11 aside from Adrian and Diaz been missing. Adrian and Hill being in for Allison and Diaz rather. So this time we got the personnel, but the knock-on effect of that is these are the players for the most part who have had the least time in pre-season. I think some of them have only been back a couple of days prior to this, so they're going to look rusty. They're going to be kind of you know look like they've just come back from a week in Ibiza, so to speak. And I think with a few of the players we saw that they didn't look sharp. I mean, I'd say for me, Mo Salah was the only one of them that did look sharp. And I think that, but we nonetheless saw kind of moments of class from them, and I think that's why in the kind of the early exchanges of this half-hour mini match, let's call it, Liverpool did look the stronger team, until unfortunately a counter attack by United.
Still Eric Bailly went on a madness.
Yeah. I think it was Konate tried to slide in a true ball and it was intercepted by Bailly, and Bailly decided to do a Joel Matip and just go on a run, and it led to a goal, and that kind of gave United's young guns a bit of a lift. But I think it was nonetheless, it was interesting to kind of see, just the early signs of how kind of Salah is going to link up with Nunes, and there were some positive signs. I think clearly, Nunes didn't look 100%. I think maybe that the miss people were a bit harsh on. I mean, he did have to try and lift it because there was a defender sliding in on him. So it wasn't quite a taxi for Nunes moment as some may have suggested, but clearly nonetheless he's not 100% sharp yet. He's only coming into a new team, and it's going to take him time. But yeah, it's just I think that the theme all along is that it's always going to be hard when you're so early in preseason and you're mixing and matching. You're not going to see anything resembling kind of a performance, and that's what we got today.
Yeah, Jay, I think there's not really much to speak about. Again, there's not loads of notes. Tom Hill did a nice tackle on by, nearly set up a chance for Thiago. Darwin shot after a nice Robbo pass and then their goal. And there's a couple others, obviously the Darwin miss and stuff like that. But let's focus in on Darwin because we know what to expect of the other lads once they get fit. I only ever saw him in the 2 games against us, and bar not finishing the open goal, it's kind of what we saw from him. Really good movement, shooting from anywhere. Hopefully misses less open goals. But yeah, it's kind of more attacking. Number 9 movement's kind of what I expected, and that's what we got, even if it is in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a, hoo-ha. Like some idiot decided to make a compilation of, 3 misses in a warm-up program yesterday on Twitter, and I often go to the game and we'll get in early enough to see the warm-ups, and many a times I've seen Sadio Mane either bend Everton into the top corner, then have the worst game of his life, or miss every single shot and then put 2 away. It's just one of them things. I don't get too worked up about something like that. And I'm sure some idiots will make a lot of the fact that it went over the bar from 7 yards, even though from what I seen, he was just snatching at it, and he was flying in and anything. If you look at it closely, he pulls his foot away for the fact that he probably doesn't want to get clattered by Eric by his big size, 11 feet or whatever. But yeah, the initial, number 9 things that we've wanted, or what we sort of think we're going to get out of Darwin. There was enough signs there. There was a couple of headers he won. There was movements across the whole of the their back 4 in terms of going in and out of each position, running the channels. A couple of times he linked up with Mo. A couple of times the link up with other players didn't come off. But what do we want from a lad who was probably carrying blisters by all accounts, because that's what it seemed to be labelled as yesterday when he pulled out the training session. That it's probably all to do with the humidity and sweat and new boots and just getting back into action on the football pitch and whatever. So,
and can only speak to Thiago.
Yeah, I know. I have just come across I think it was on Instagram or something like that. We've got like 5 Portuguese speakers across the front line, apart from Mo Salah's the only one who doesn't. With Jota, Diaz, Carvalho, Darwin. I'm missing someone, and Salah's the odd one out, basically. But yeah, he done enough for me to say like he's not Andy Carroll. And I think someone put in the chat at some point on Discord they were getting Suarez vibes, and if he's half the player that Suarez was for us, I think we'll all be very happy to take that. But yeah, like Suarez couldn't hit a barn door for the first few months of his Liverpool career, or was smashing every post in sight.
The Kenny season, it was the post literally every game.
Yeah, and what do you want, really? It's pre-season. Just get over yourself. Like we put ourselves through the agony of watching that game and coming on here to talk about it. You've just watched it and gone away and moaned about it on Twitter. So cheer up and get on with yourself.
So we can all confirm Klopp out. There we go.
Yeah. And United for the league. Get your odds now while you can. Paddy Power will give you the good price.
Do you reckon their odds have actually gone down because of that game? They probably have, haven't
they? They probably have.
Gone from like 500 to 1 to 400.
490 to 1. But yeah, wrap up Ten Hag, give him the Manager of the Year award and all that bollocks that they'll come up with. But Yeah. Enough there for promise-wise, and I think, I don't know if you're going to touch on it, but the little back heel combo between Trent and Salah.
Oh,
was
yeah.
special. Very special.
More with his blonde highlights.
Oh, he's been watching Diaz and Bobby.
He's ready. He's ready for his Ballon d'Or push, I think. Either of you here, anything to add before we go? Take that as a no.
I was going to give Karl a smash at that was why.
Karl, anything?
No, I'd just say, I think that match is really going to be kind of out on its own. I'd expect to see something very different on Friday. Probably something, maybe just two teams on Friday. I'd say a few of those youngsters that we saw today probably won't feature. So I just think that if anyone isn't taking it, kind of lightly, they should be. I mean, it should have no impact on the rest of pre-season, let alone kind of the season itself.
My last note is play Sepp Vandenberg at right back because he is actually a right back rather than a number 10. I'll go with that. But that's it. I think we've got 35 odd mins from that. I presume I'll be back Friday, if that's when the game is. I'm not sure who it'll be, but I will bribe people into joining me. If not, it'll just be me rambling for 10 minutes, hopefully on a better game for us. But I'll be back then. I don't know if it'll be Karl or Jay with me, but maybe. But I will catch you all later. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.